Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 24th edition of the annual Teddy Waste Awards. I'm Franco Terrazzano, the Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and I'm pleased to be sharing hosting duties this year with our Alberta Director, Chris Sims, and our friendly mascot, Porky the Waste Hater.
The Teddies are named after Ted Weatherhill, a former federal bureaucrat who racked up $150,000 in food and drink expenses before he was finally fired. While Ted is long gone from government, his legacy lives on in his namesake ceremony, the Teddy Waste Awards. It has become our annual celebration of the best of the worst of government waste.
This year, we have a total of 16 nominees across our federal, provincial, and municipal categories, in addition to our most prestigious award, the Lifetime Achievement Award for Government Waste. Well, let's start first with the municipal category.
So the first nominee involves a serious case of tree envy. In 2019, the City of Winnipeg erected an artificial and reusable Christmas tree that stood 28 feet tall in front of City Hall. But Mayor Brian Bowman didn't think the tree was up to size. This past Christmas, the city shelled out another $260,000 on major enhancements for the city's reusable Christmas tree, including a 22-foot tall extension. We don't know exactly what the city is compensating for with a 50-foot tall Christmas tree, but Mayor Bowman needs to know that size isn't everything when it comes to taxpayers' money.
You know, I like to party as much as the next guy, unless that next guy is SUKH GILL. He was a bureaucrat at the Thompson Nicola Regional District in beautiful Kamloops, British Columbia, who expensed $500,000 over 5 years on fancy meals, booze, and jewelry for his crew, in addition to more than $8,000 on a champagne room. And what did Kamloops do to make sure that this would never happen again? They gave GILL a $500,000 severance. Rumor is, he plans to spend that money on 62 champagne rooms.
So, politicians always talk about helping the downtrodden, right? That's their thing. But Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson has an odd notion as to who really needs help. The City of Ottawa handed out nearly $3 million to a Porsche dealership. As Postmedia's Jesse Klein pointed out, the money went to building a 2-story Porsche dealership on top of an existing Audi dealership that's on the same site as a Maserati dealership, and it's just 600 meters from the company's existing Porsche dealerships. Seriously, I Google mapped it. It's like a 9-minute walk. Rumor is it that Lamborghini and Rolls-Royce feeling like they're taking a back seat.
The next nominee is literally flushing taxpayers' money down the toilet. The City of Vancouver is apparently so flush with taxpayers' cash that it's spending $645,000 on an outdoor washroom. That price tag is surely causing some stomach rumblings for City of Vancouver taxpayers. A similar facility is being installed in Prince George, but for a third of the price. The City of Vancouver has yet to come clean on why its deal stinks so much compared to Prince George's.
So gross. So, for Edmonton taxpayers, the delayed and over-budget Metro Line LRT was the little engine that couldn't. In Edmonton's defense, the city eventually worked out the kinks, but not after spending millions that the city is now trying to recoup. Years of delays and 2 different companies. So, how do you find a missing train line? Follow the tracks. The City of Edmonton proved to be much better at covering their tracks than building them. And with that, if I could please get the winning envelope. Thank you. And the winner of the municipal government category is SUKH GILL. SUKH GILL, the former chief administrative. Thank you. Once again, SUKH GILL is the former chief administrative officer at the Thompson Nicola Regional District near Kamloops. He was expensing an average of $100,000 per year for 5 years. And you know, if you spend that amount of money on jewelry, fancy meals, and popping bottles, it might make you popular at the municipal board meetings, but it's not going to make you many friends with taxpayers who are actually paying your bills. Now, let's move on to the provincial nominees.
How do you scare a polar bear? You don't. They're huge, they're apex predators, and they're not scared of anything. Yet, the government of Manitoba spent $150,000 replacing diesel tundra buggies with electric vehicles so tourists wouldn't scare away the polar bears. Before spending all that cash, taxpayers wish the government had watched the raft of YouTube videos that show the polar bears sound asleep as the diesel buggies pass on by.
So, we're supposed to trust Ontario politicians to oversee a $200 billion budget, but they can't get by without a payday advance to cover their own election campaigns. Doug Ford promised to end political welfare. Instead, he's giving political parties $60 million in taxpayers' money and a payday loan so they can take the cash even earlier. You know, oppositions at Queen's Park fight almost everything that Ford does. If he says cheesecake, they scream for ice cream. That's how it usually works. But they finally found something they can give Ford a pass on, giving themselves more tax dollars. Can you hear the kumbaya at Queen's Park?
The great thing about Netflix and chill is that it's a pretty cheap date. But staying home on the couch gets pretty expensive if you're spending $140,000 like the government of Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, the government says that visitors will be able to sit on these sofas once the colonial building reopens. But taxpayers are demanding sippy cups and cushion covers because if 4 couches cost $140,000, then we better not be seeing a cleaning bill.
So how do you hide a jet that's 127 feet long? Leave it up to the Quebec government. In 2015, Quebec gave Bombardier's C-Series $1.3 billion. And the last annual report shows that loan is now worthless. So Quebec finally figured out that giving Bombardier more cash wasn't a good idea. So now Quebec is giving the Airbus A220 project a $380 million subsidy instead. Only problem here, taxpayers didn't get to see the fine print. See, the Airbus A220 is just a name change. It's the plane formerly known as the Bombardier C-Series. Rumor has it that they're going to go for another branding change, but the Enron was already taken.
The next nominee exemplifies government employees' unrelenting commitment to being paid overtime. The pandemic was hard on us all. But one upside is that it gave some people the opportunity to relax a little bit, reconnect with their families, and try to escape the rat race. Well, that wasn't the case for LOTO QUEBEC. Even though they closed their casinos, their employees were still able to log $1.9 million in overtime. LOTO QUEBEC teaches us all a very important life lesson. Just because no one is at the blackjack table, it doesn't mean you stop dealing. And with that, if I could get the winning envelope, please, for our provincial category. Let's see here. Okay. And the winner of the provincial category of government waste is the government of Quebec. The government of Quebec, everyone. And they're getting the provincial teddy for finding new and innovative ways to give taxpayers money to Airbus. Now, let's move on to the federal nominations.
So, when it comes to blowing taxpayers' money, this next nominee consistently says, hold my beer. So, the NCC is basically a Parks and Recs board on steroids in Ottawa. And it turns out it cost around $11 million to renovate the Prime Minister's cottage mansion at Harrington Lake. For the amount the NCC was spending on renovations alone, taxpayers instead could have purchased outright Chad Kruger and Avril Lavigne's Los Angeles mansion, Halle Berry's lavish getaway in the Laurentians, and a super fancy cottage right next to Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, and we'd still have money left over to buy a couple of Lamborghinis.
The next nominee is a scary sequel to M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense. It's taxpayers see dead people with 6-figure expense accounts. Being Governor General is a pretty sweet gig. It comes with an all-expenses-paid mansion and a $300,000 per year salary. But apparently, even that's not enough. When a Governor General leaves office, they get a $200,000 per year expense account for the rest of their life and up to 6 months into the afterlife. Hopefully, when a former Governor General passes, they rest in peace and don't rack up too many expenses.
So the next nomination is a federal crown corporation that just can't let the idea of a home equity tax go. The Liberals say they won't put in a home equity tax. The Conservatives say they won't put one in either. But that hasn't stopped the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. The CMHC spent $250,000 on a report that recommends a surtax on the value of homes above $1 million. Then they turned around and spent another $200,000 on a study to understand the results of their own home tax study. Seriously, the CMHC is like the big bad wolf. They'll huff and they'll puff and they'll tax your home equity down. It's okay, Porky.
How do you know when it's really cold in Ottawa? Politicians put their hands in their own pockets for a change. During the pandemic, many Canadians had a tough time, took a pay cut, lost their job, maybe even lost their business, all while members of Parliament were busy giving themselves not one, not two, but 3 pandemic pay raises. The pandemic pay raises range from an extra $10,000 for a backbencher all the way up to an extra $20,000 for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. But can you really blame these politicians for wanting more money? After all, their tax hikes are really making things expensive these days.
So, how do you turn a free service into a $1,000 expense? Just add government. In Canada, any police station will come pick up your firearm free of charge if you decide you don't want it anymore. It's a free service. Most of us are super happy when something's free, but not Canadian heritage. So these bureaucrats spent $1,000 talking amongst themselves about how to get the police to come pick this thing up for free. They even spent hundreds of dollars getting their plans translated into French. Taxpayers certainly hope that bureaucrats working for Canadian heritage don't go to Timmy's on their breaks and play roll up the whim, because they're going to turn a free coffee into a $10,000 bill. And with that, if I could please get the winning envelope. Thank you, sir. And the winner in the federal category for the 2022 Teddy Waste Awards, the National Capital Commission. For spending around $11 million renovating a lake house, including $2.5 million on a backup cottage for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Yes, Trudeau has a backup mansion at Harrington Lake. Because, you know, if there's paint fumes or hammering happening somewhere, you might have to go sleep in a fancy doghouse.
And just think about how many Porsche dealerships the City of Ottawa could have subsidized with all that money. Won't somebody think of the Porsche dealerships? And now, our most prestigious award, the Lifetime Achievement Award for Waste. Just let me take a little sneak peek here.
It's cheating.
It's a good one. So past recipients have included everyone from premiers to prime ministers to Bevoda, Bombardier, and the Phoenix payroll fiasco. The winner put in a lot of solid efforts in the past, but finally got over the finish line this year, and it is Canada's climate delegations. Canada sent 276 delegates to the United Nations' recent COP26 climate conference in Glasgow, Scotland, the highest of any G7 country. The host United Kingdom managed with only 227, the Americans sent 133 delegates, and the efficient Germans sent 120. It's hard to imagine why it takes more than 2 Canadian delegates to do the work of 1 American or German delegate. Even more bizarre, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland lodged in the wrong city, staying in Edinburgh rather than the host city of Glasgow. So now taxpayers are left wondering, did the Finance Minister forget to check Google Maps before booking her trip? And even if rooms in Glasgow were full, it's hard to imagine that a deputy prime minister of a G7 nation couldn't pull rank. Forcing some bureaucrats to zoom in rather than fly over to Scotland could have freed up some rooms for Freeland. And Freeland didn't have to bill taxpayers $3,000 on a luxury chauffeur service between the 2 cities when first-class train tickets between Glasgow and Edinburgh were much cheaper and faster.
And better for the environment.
The 2021 conference cost more than $1 million. In 2019, Canada sent the second largest G20 delegation to COP25 in Madrid, Spain. That cost taxpayers more than 680,000 smackers. Canada's COP26 delegation is less efficient than a 1970s 4x4 truck pulling a camper up a hill. Because the result is higher emissions and higher taxpayer costs, Canada's climate delegations are a worthy recipient of this year's Lifetime Achievement Award for government waste.
And with that, we would like to thank you very much for coming to the 2022 Teddy Waste Awards. Thank you for coming here.